Hey, what's going on YouTube? Welcome to another League of Legends guide. Today we are covering Jungle Amumu, the sad, sad mummy.
Let me give you a hug.
Amumu's a really tanky champion with a great hard engage, which has a long range. He has a very high impact ultimate, and very often, if he does land one solid ultimate on an entire team, he can win the game. He's then got a very versatile build path. If you need a really tanky champion, he can fill that role, or if you need something that adds some nice damage and is an off tank, he can do that as well. He's got an amazing late game, and he's very easy to understand and learn as his abilities are very straightforward. Then finally, due to the tankiness and that amazing engage and high impact ultimate, he is one of the best team fighters in the entire game. Now although he's a very strong champion, there of course is a bunch of cons. The first is the lack of a built-in escape. If you go all in onto an enemy team, you're pretty much stuck there until you kill them, or you die yourself. You then have a very weak early game and are very prone to invades. Invading junglers like Lee Sin and Elise can give you a very tough time. Then there is the fact that as long as you do go for a generic build, you do have very mediocre damage. Sure, you have a very high impact ultimate which can CC an entire team, but if you have 0 damage to follow up, it's not going to go that well. For our masteries, I like to go 6 Ferocity, 6 Cunning, and 18 Resolve. The ability, damage, and exposed weakness are really strong in Ferocity, and that movement speed and buff duration are also really strong in that Cunning, so I don't really go for that normal 12-18 split. But anyways, after that we go 18 Resolve, and we grab Strength of the Ages as our Keystone Mastery. Going down this entire tree, basically we're focusing on getting as much tankiness as possible, so we're very, very durable. For my runes, I like to go Magic Penetration Reds, Armor Yellows, Magic Resist Blues, and Ability Power Quints. Ability Power is a given as he is an AP champion, but the Magic Penetration you could opt for, say, Armor Reds instead, but I really like that extra increased damage from the penetration. This will make your early ganks just a little bit more effective. But then, as per usual, we make sure we grab that Armor and Magic Resist, so we are a durable champion. Smite is our first required summoner spell. It is required to buy our jungler item, and will make our jungle clear much faster and more efficient. It will then also secure Dragon and Baron so the enemy jungler can't come in and easily steal it, so pretty much Smite is a 100% requirement. Then as for something else that's 100% required, it would be Flash. It is both great for escaping and engaging. With Flash, you'll have a much easier time positioning in a team fight and getting your ultimate off on multiple targets if you do have that Flash available. Your bandage toss is great to get you into that fight, but if you miss it, Flash can get you into that position you need and still land a really good ultimate. Now let's look at each of your abilities, starting with your passive, Cursed Touch. So this one is very, very simple. Your basic attacks will reduce between 15 and 25 magic resist from your targets for 3 seconds and refresh with another basic attack. So yeah, there's not too much you can say about this ability. I mean, it is great against the jungle camps because they're going to have like no magic resist, but in ganks it just reduces them by a tiny bit, so you can get off just a little bit more damage. But now here is your main way of getting into a fight. Your Q, Bandage Toss. You will shoot a bandage at 1100 range, and it will stun the first enemy it hits for 1 second and deal magic damage, and also pull you to that location. The magic damage is pretty decent at between an 80 and 280 base, plus 70% AP. So yeah, this is a rather solid ability because without something like this, Amumu would really struggle at getting into a team fight. That of course means that landing this is very important. If you are going in for a team fight and you miss a bandage toss, you can be kited all day long until you can go for another bandage toss. Also, if you are getting invaded or you are trying to run away somewhere and there's minions, you can use this bandage toss to target that minion or monster and get away. It can actually be a rather decent escape, but it's definitely not reliable because you do rely on something being in that location. Think of it like Lee Sin's Q. You of course can use his Q as an escape if you don't have anything to W towards. Now for your W, Despair. Amumu cries a continuous pool of tears dealing magic damage every second to nearby enemies. This damage is between an 8 and 24 base, plus between 1 and 3% plus 1% per 100 AP of the enemy's maximum health. This of course is a toggle ability and will cost you 8 mana per second. So this ability is okay. It obviously adds a little bit of damage in team fights, but of course people are going to try to not be standing near Amumu, so you probably won't get too much damage from this ability. However, if you do combo it with a Rylai's Crystal Scepter, then that will provide a constant slow and you can keep stuff perma-slow. If you go for this item, you will be able to stick to targets, and you'll actually be able to dish out a lot of damage on the tanky targets that do have a lot of maximum health. Now for your E, Tantrum. So this has a passive that makes Amumu take reduced physical damage, and it's between 2 and 10 based on the rank of the ability. When activated, Amumu will release his anger, dealing magic damage to nearby enemies, and Tantrum's cooldown reduced by 0.5 seconds every time Amumu is hit by a basic attack. The damage is between 75 and 175 base, plus 50% AP. So this is the main ability we do max on Amumu, because obviously it's great for getting through the jungle. It already has a somewhat low cooldown, but every time we're hit by an attack, it gets even lower, so it's great on those multi-minion camps. It can of course add a nice chunk of AoE damage into teamfights, and if people are attacking Amumu, he's just going to end up doing more damage. Max this ability first, and then we start maxing either the Q or W, it kind of depends, and we're going to talk about that in a bit. But first, let's look at that last ability, your ultimate, Curse of the Sad Mummy.
Let me give you a hug.
When activated, Amumu deals magic damage to nearby enemies and entangles them for 2 seconds, and it deals between a 150 and 350 base, plus 80% AP. So this is why Amumu is so strong in team fights, the ability to hold an entire team in place for 2 seconds. This makes Amumu fit really well into those wombo combo teams that have something like a Malphite ultimate top, Annie ultimate mid, and a Miss Fortune ultimate bottom. Combo these together to insta-gib whole teams. Have that Amumu get that awesome engage, and all that's left is for those other people to press that R key. But anyways, generally you're trying to get this, of course, on as many targets as you can. In a team fight, of course you want to engage with that Q, but if you're not in a great position, you can always flash forward even farther, land that ultimate, and have your team hopefully follow up. All in all, a fantastic ultimate that makes Amumu the great champion he is. So here is your skill order, and I like starting with W because it will keep your Hunter's Talisman permanently on all minions. I then focus on maxing my E, as it does do a lot of nice AoE damage and is great for clearing through that jungle. Then I do like maxing the Q for its increased damage and reduced cooldown, and the big one is the reduced cooldown. Being able to stun multiple people in teamfights is a big part of why I max Q second. You can, however, also max your W if you do wish, if there are a lot of tanky champions on that enemy team and you want to dish out some solid damage. I would, however, only recommend that if you do take a Rylai's Crystal Scepter to make sure you can stick onto targets. A lot of people seem to like to start with E at level 1, and honestly that is completely fine. You're going to clear through that jungle camp no matter what, even if you do take your W or E, so it's not a big deal. For our jungle route, we'll generally want to start where our bot lane is. In this game, however, there was a lot of action by my red buff, so instead I started on my blue side and got help from my top laner. Start by taking either the golems or the gromp, depending on what side of the map you are on, and then follow up with the blue or red. If you are worried about counter jungling, then you may want to start right at either your blue or red. This will get it cleared in time so the enemy jungler won't be able to ward over and smite your buff. Now if you are starting at golems, this really doesn't matter at all because Amumu is not an attack speed based champion, so not having that golem buff really doesn't matter too much. After you've killed your first camp and taken both buffs, you can try your first gank and then either back or take that scuttle crab and move on from there. Keep in mind Amumu does get a lot better when he is level 6, so try to get that 6 as early as you can and then start those fantastic ganks. Now ganking is pretty straightforward on Amumu. All you have to do is make sure you land that bandage toss from a long distance to stun the target and close a large gap. Then of course you'll have your team follow up and add some nice damage. Make sure you keep in mind if an enemy still does have their built-in escape or flash. You may want to bandage toss into the direction you think they will flash or use that escape to go in, so you will still land that ability. If you are level 6, you of course have the option of using your ultimate, Curse of the Sad Mummy, to stun anyone within range. This makes your ganks a hell of a lot more effective. When I do hit level 6, I generally like to hit the bot lane first. You do have very potent ganks with that ultimate, and if you can land it on both enemy bot laners, usually you can get yourself a double kill. Now if you do unfortunately miss that bandage toss, you also have the option to flash forward and land that ultimate as well. You are a very strong team fighter with a very simple goal. Stun as many targets as you can, and if there is somebody really fed, you have to make sure they're CC'd. Close the gap on the enemy team with a bandage toss, and then go in for Curse of the Sad Mummy when you have the majority of the enemy team inside that range. You can also flash forward after you do land that bandage toss to get into a better position and stun more targets. After you've either initiated or counter-initiated, try and land additional bandage tosses on high kill priority targets to keep them CC'd as much as possible. Of course, other than that, just make sure you have your W activated and you use your E as often as you can. Last is our item build, which starts with a Hunter's Talisman, refillable potion, and a warding totem. For our 2 different core builds, we have the Cinder Hulk and Frozen Heart, or we have the Runic Echoes, and, of course, the Sunfire Cape. The Frozen Heart works great with that Cinder Hulk because you will get 20% CDR, and since you do have a lot of health already from the Cinder Hulk, getting a Frozen Heart is a fantastic way to add tankiness. Then, since of course the Runic Echoes has no health on it, the Sunfire adds some nice health and does add a nice burn damage as well. We will then want to add boots, and if we're against a lot of CC or AP, we want to take the Mercs, against a lot of AD, the Ninja Tabbies, and if we need full-on speed, the Boots of Swiftness. I suppose Ionian boots would be rather strong as well, but I'm a much bigger fan of these 3 boots. Now, for the rest of the items, if we do need some magic resist and we really need to block spells, the Banshee's Veil is a great item. This is great especially on Amumu because blocking 1 CC can be great when you are trying to go for an engage. Then if we just want some added damage and still have some magic resist and get that extra 10% CDR, Abyssal is a great item as well. Then our last pure magic resist item, of course, as always, is the Spirit Visage. It is great for that 10% CDR and everything else the item provides. If we are in the very late game, a Guardian Angel is a fantastic item as well, so we can come back to life. If we do need to add some sort of split push, we of course have the Zz'Rot Portal, and it is nice because it gives some solid armor and magic resist as well. For our 2 other AD options, we have the Randuins if we do want a health pool, and of course that nice active slow, and the Thornmail if we're against full AD. An item I have already mentioned before is the Rylai's. I don't know why I put it so deep in the item pool, I'm too lazy to kind of change it, but it is a fantastic item on Amumu. I honestly take it all the time. It's a great way of keeping stuff slowed, so your carries have a much easier time kiting the enemy. If we're against a very tanky team, Liandry's is a solid choice as well, as we do get a little bit of a health pool from it, but a really solid burn. For our first full build, we take our core, add some Ninja Tabbies, then the Rylai's, Randuins, and a Thornmail. We won't deal a ton of damage, but we're going to be almost impossible to actually kill, and we'll be able to perma-slow stuff. For our second full build, we focus on adding a bunch more damage. We take the core with the Runic Echoes, add an Abyssal, Rylai's to keep stuff slowed like usual, and a Liandry's for some nice burn damage. If we were against the high AP team, yet again, take that core, make sure you have Merc Treads, add the Rylai's yet again, and then an Abyssal and a Spirit Visage. Amumu is a champion that itemizes extremely well. Just pick what you need for the situation you're in, and go from there. But that basically covers everything I've got on Jungle Amumu. I would like to thank you guys a lot for watching the guide. If you did like it, please make sure you thumb it up, and if you really liked it, you can always subscribe. Like everybody else, I'm watching all of the World Games going on right now, and all those popular champions that are getting picked by the pro teams will have a champion guide rather soon. If you'd like to see a list of all of our guides, you can go to egamingtv.com, and you can also follow us on Twitter where we do skin giveaways at egaming_TV. Thanks again for watching, and I will see you guys in the next champion guide. Peace!